What's up and welcome everyone. Happy Thursday. Today we're going to be doing the Surreal Collage demo, and what I'd like for you to kind of glean from this is selections, new ways of making selections. We're going to do a little bit of mask work, as well as just more work in our layers palette, which tends to be kind of the hub for navigating through our artwork. So I want you to hopefully be comfortable by now working in this area, but we're going to be just kind of adding to our knowledge there in general. All right, so what we see here is this couple, and as you can see, I've added a few things to spice it up some, and this is our end goal. This is where we'll end up. So without further ado, I'm going to just close this out. I don't need to save that at the moment. But the first thing we want to do is we want to connect to the server, obviously, and type in our address there. Wait for it to come up. There we go. And we're going to navigate to our folder, and in the demo files folder, we're going to see the Surreal Collage folder. And as you can see, we have a series of images that we'll be cutting up and applying to this final piece. So we're going to grab this and drag it right to the desktop. We do not want to be affecting these files that are inside the folder. We want to create our own copy on our computer. Okay, so from here, we're going to open this up. And as you can see, we have a collection of files. First is Barbara Steinweg, famous actress back in the day. We have some fireball images, halftone, more fire, an eye, skull, spring flowers, and then our final project here, which you may or may not have in yours. Anyway, first thing we want to do is click on the Barbara Steinweg file, and we're going to drag it right to our Photoshop icon, which will open it up in Photoshop. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to File, Open, and we're going to navigate to our desktop. And I believe mine would be found under PS Surreal Collage. We're going to open up the skull image in a separate document. So as you can see up here, we have our tabs. And that just shows us that we have two projects open at the moment, two files open. And this is a common way of working, especially when you're adding one image to another. You kind of doctor it up and prepare it in one file, and then you can import it into the next. So that's what we want to do. And what we need to do is cut the background out of this image. So I'm going to grab my magic wand tool. So it can be found here, magic wand. And the way this works is that it selects blocks or chunks of color. And because the white background is so different from the actual skull itself, when I click on that white, it's going to detect those edges really nicely. So this selection tool works really great for this particular application. I'm also going to hit or hold down Shift on my keyboard so that I can apply another selection inside the jaw area here, and then there's this other little bit right there that I want to select. Okay, so now I need to unlock this layer, so I'm going to hit the unlock button. I need to unlock it in order to delete the background, which I can do now. I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard. And then to deselect, I can actually hit Command D, or I can go to Select, Deselect. And what that does is it gets rid of that marching ants pattern. It gets rid of that selection. So I'm going to go ahead and do that deselect. Okay, so now what I'm left with is a skull with a transparent background. So how do I apply it to this? Well, I'm going to grab my move tool, and I'm going to click on this skull, so I can begin to move it. I'm clicking and dragging now. And I'm going to click and drag it all the way up to this tab until it opens. Now I still have my mouse held down, and I'm going to bring my mouse into the picture, and then I'm going to release my mouse. Voila. But I'm now seeing that we have a problem. I've imported this image, and it's imported it as a black and white image. So you'll see it used to be a color image. When I bring it into here, it's a black and white image, and that indicates to me that I'm not working in the correct color mode. If you remember at the beginning of the class, we went over the CMYK color mode and the RGB color mode. Well, right now this one has a grayscale mode, and you'll know that by just simply by clicking image mode, and you can see whatever one is checked is the color mode it's using. And right now grayscale, which means there's no color. It's all gray tones, values of white and black. So we need to fix that because we do eventually want to add color to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to RGB color. And it's going to ask me if I want to flatten the image, and I'm going to say no, I don't want to do that. So we've got these two layers now. We've got the background layer and the skull layer. It is now technically in color, but because it started off in gray, it doesn't bring the color back. It's just now that if we start to add color, like if I were to click and drag this skull back in, you'll see that it now is in color. Okay, so when you change the mode, it doesn't bring color back, but anything you do from that point on, you'll be able to use color. Fortunately for us, we don't need color. I'm going to just delete this colored skull. We don't need color for the skull itself, so we're just going to leave that alone. But as we move forward, we will. So that it's good that we changed it now. So we want to match this skull with the man's face, and we can see now that it is facing the wrong way. So we're going to change that. We're going to go to Edit, Transform, and we're going to say Flip Horizontal. What that's going to do is it's going to mirror it horizontally. So now the image is facing the opposite way. So here we go. I've got my move tool, so I'm able to click and drag this around. But for every object that you have selected in your layers palette, you can apply transform controls to it simply by going to Image, Free Transform, or Command T. And this is a shortcut you're going to want to use a lot because you'll be doing a lot of scaling and a lot of rotating of images. And if you just have that in your brain and able to just hit it quickly on the keyboard, you'll find yourself moving a lot quicker in Photoshop. So what that does is when you choose Free Transform, it gives you what's called this bounding box, and it has these anchor points on every corner in the center. And if you click and drag those things, it allows you to scale it up or down. And then if you hover over the outside of the corners, you'll notice the cursor changes to this like bent arrow, and what that means is you can actually rotate it too from a center axis. So that's what we want to do. We want to kind of scale this down, and we're going to try to match this dude's face. And then we're also going to try to rotate it. Okay, I'm just kind of matching up his eyes and the nose. Something like that. Then I can put it on top. And notice his forehead isn't quite lined up, so we're just going to do our best here. And a good sure way of finding what, the perfect size is we can actually come over here to the opacity settings and bring those settings down a bit so that we can see behind and line it up even more. So something like that will do. So do your best to line that up. Once you like how it looks, you can bring the opacity back up, and then to release it from this bounding box, you just hit Enter or Return on the keyboard, and it goes away. Okay, so now it's looking pretty creepy, but we want to get rid of the the top of the head, right? We want kind of the hair to come in. Actually, I'm going to have this this reference come up. So we kind of want the hair to come in over the skull and maybe see the ear. So again, we're going to lower the opacity, and now we can see the hairline. So what we can do is with the eraser, which so happens to be a brush-based tool, is we can make the size of that brush a little bigger, and we want the hardness to be all the way down so it's got a soft edge, and we can erase wherever there is hair. Okay, and then we're also going to erase over the ear so that we can show that too. And because it's a soft edge, it's going to blend in rather nicely so that when I turn the opacity back up, boom, kind of comes in. And then you can touch it up a little bit more. Yeah, something like that. All right. So we've already transformed this image to be something entirely different. So let's keep moving. What's next? Let's go back over here. Okay, so let's focus on the woman's head. She's got flames for hair now. So what we can do is, just like we did in our photo restoration demonstration, we used the clone stamp tool to stamp out those cracks. Well, we can use that same tool in a more extreme example by simply adjusting the size, and I'm using my left and right brackets on the keyboard. When I hit those with a brush-based tool, it changes the size of your brush in increments. So I'm going to choose Option to give me my little targeted crosshairs there on my cursor, and I'm going to target the background. And what I can do, oh, I made a mistake. So let's make sure we choose the background first, and I'm going to unlock this. I had my skull layer selected, so it wasn't working. So make sure you select the image, the layer of the couple first, and then we can target the background. And as you can see, I can kind of stamp out this this hair, and I can target down here too, because there are, you know, varying shades of the background. And you'll notice that I'm coming back down and retargeting, because sometimes you end up with some of the shirt in that area. And I do want to try to keep the values similar so you don't see the transition from dark to light so much. And I'm just kind of painting that in. And I'm not going to get too close to her shirt or to her face because I don't want to blot out it too much. But that's about what you're looking for. And again, you know, just retargeting every now and then will help keep those shades looking blended. You know, we'll keep it blended well. Okay, so we've got her hair out of there, and now we want to replace it with some fire. So let's go ahead and go up to Open. We'll navigate to our Surreal Collage project folder, and we're going to choose this Hellfire Inferno auto tune. I guess that's what the file's called. You want the fireball, basically. So hit Open, and here we have the fireball. So in order to bring this over, we want to unlock it first. And this isn't quite as simple as the skull. We can't just click on the black and hit delete, because we end up with still kind of this black background. We see through the flames, and that's something that is a little harder to select. Like, we could get in there and do that, but it starts to make the fire look pretty choppy, and we want it to blend better than that. Okay, so we can actually take care of this really easily using a blending mode. So as I said, you want to unlock the layer. You're going to grab your move tool, you're going to click on the flame, And just like we did with the skull, we're going to drag it into our project file. And I haven't let go of my mouse yet. You want to let go once you are hovering over the image itself. And this is a fairly large image. So as you can see, it fills the frame and goes beyond. So making sure that that layer is selected, we're going to go to Edit, Free Transform, or as I said, Command T. And we're going to see the bounding box. If you're zoomed in like this, you may not see it appear, so you're going to have to zoom out in order to see the bounding box, because that's how big the image is. Okay, so now we want to make this image a lot smaller, and you can actually scale it down if you to the center, holding down Option, and you kind of want to make it about the size of her hair. Okay, and that's going to be a little hard to tell because all that black covers it up, but I'm just kind of moving it into a rough position. And here's the really cool part. Hit Enter on your keyboard to release it from the bounding box. And then making sure that layer is selected, we're going to choose a blending mode. We're going to choose Screen. All right, and what Screen does is basically the opposite of Multiply. We've used Multiply in the past where it lets the layer lets whatever is bright, light in the image through. Well, Screen kind of does the opposite, where it lets whatever is dark through the image, lets that through. So if we go to normal, we can see all the dark spaces, and then when we go to Screen, it's basically saying, okay, whatever's black, make transparent. So that is a pretty good location, though I am going to get a little picky, and again, making sure my flames layer is selected, I'm going to hit Command T, and I can rotate a bit and kind of fill out that space. Now it looks like there's some motion and some emotion, I suppose, happening with this lady's hair. Okay, but that's not the end. We're going to add even more flames to it, because if we look back over here, we see the hair is really flying off her head, and we got some nice movement happening with the sparks. So moving back, we're going to go to File, Open, and we're going to grab that other image of the flames. So this is the one with just kind of the straight flame shooting up with all the sparks there. So we're going to say Open, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to unlock the image, going to grab our Move tool, going to click it, drag it onto the tab that we're working in, and we're going to drop it, release the mouse over the image. Okay, and again, it's a little too big, so I'm going to zoom out here, hit Command T, and scale it down. Something like that. Just kind of rotate it into a rough position, and then we're going to make the blending mode Screen. Now we can zoom back in, and to me that's a little small, so I'm going to kind of rotate it. I'm just hovering over the corners here to rotate it and just move it into a position. So this is where you as the artist get to decide how this is going to look, where your placement's going to be. I'm going to go right there. So the thing about this image is it does have this harsh edge on the bottom here, because that was the bottom of the photo. So we can blend that in simply by grabbing our eraser tool and making sure that we have 0% hardness, so we have the softest edge possible. We can begin just kind of softening that edge up so it just blends into the rest of it. Now, I don't really like the flames coming over her face or over her eye in particular. I like it coming down around her cheek here, but I'm going to select the other flame image and just kind of erase that out too, so I can see a little more of her face, something like that. Also gives the illusion that the flames are coming around the other side of her head, so it's a little more dimensional that way. Okay, so now we have some pretty interesting characters. Now we have this man with a skull face and this woman with this fire hair. So we're getting somewhere, I think. So let's go ahead and close these flame images, and you don't have to save them because they serve their purpose. We can close the skull image as well. And then we're going to look back here. Okay, so what else do we have? We have a shirt and a watch, and some makeup, some coloring to the clothing. So let's move on to the shirt. Now there's another way to import an image. So far we've been just clicking and dragging it in. We've clicked and dragged in the skull and the flame images, but there's also another way, and I'm going to show you that now. It's File, we're going to say Place Embedded, and what that does is it allows us to navigate to, say, the spring flower image and hit place. And what it does is it just places it right inside of the image for us. And as I've said before, there's usually like 2 or 3 ways, if not more, 2 or 3 of the same ways to do the same thing. I didn't say that right. There's 2 or 3 ways to do the same thing in Photoshop. So this is just another one of those ways, and it's good to learn all of those ways because some tend to be a little easier than others, and it just depends on what you're doing. The thing about this, though, is that when you do place an image embedded, when you do place it this way, place embedded, you can't actually affect it. So you'll notice if I grab my eraser tool and I try to erase, it says the smart object must be rasterized before proceeding. And you get this little this no symbol, like you can't erase with it. And what that all means is that this image isn't recognized as a raster graphic just yet. It hasn't been technically or digitally broken down into pixels like Photoshop would like. So in order to do that, we're going to come over to this layer, and we're going to right click on the title, and it's going to say, you'll see rasterize layer, and that's going to take care of it. So now my eraser works. Okay, so if ever that happens to you, that's what it means, and all you have to do is right click the layer, say rasterize layer, and it will convert it to a raster graphic, and you're good to go. All right, so I'm actually going to turn make sure you place this image so that it's covering the man's shirt entirely, and you want to be sure you get even up here into the collar. So we're going to cover that up and make sure there's nothing down here of his shirt showing. Once you've done that, you can then turn the layer off so we don't see it. The next step is to make a selection, and we're going to make the selection of his shirt. So we're going to do that with the polygonal lasso tool. And the way this works is it works in just single clicks. So I click once, click twice, 3 times, and you'll notice it makes complex shapes. And then when I come back around to the very starting point, you'll see that little circle appear. Well, I can click that, and it will close the shape and give me my selection. And with that, I can hit delete, or I can affect it in any way I want. So that's how we're going to select the shirt. And I suggest zooming in, and I'm going to start in this area here. And this is going to get rather complex, a little bit tedious. So I'm going to speed up the video here so you don't have to watch me do it in real time. But you are going to have to do it in real time, and it takes a little practice. And if for some reason you mess up, you can hit undo in some cases to get your selection back. But I guess just do your best, and it's going to be practice. All right, here we go. So I'm going to start down here in the crook of her elbow, and again, it's just single clicks, and I click quite a few times to get around curvy areas, and this isn't so curvy yet, but like around the edges like this. And you don't want to be so precise that it looks amazing, because this is kind of like a rough magazine clip collage that we're trying to create. So you want to keep with that feeling. You know, you can't get super precise if you're using a pair of scissors and all that. So I'm actually going to go up into his chin here and then come back down. Oh, see, I double clicked by accident, and that's super annoying. So I'm going to hit undo, and it doesn't give me my selection back. So that's what you're going to possibly run into. Double clicking will actually close the selection and complete it before you're ready to be done. So now I have to go back. Now there are, again, easier ways of doing this, but for the purpose of this demonstration and for the purpose of you getting to know these tools, it's actually useful for you to spend this kind of time on a tool like this, just so you get a good feel for how it works. So again, we're back in the chin. I'm actually going to go up into the chin and come back down. And some of this you just kind of have to feel out with where the shirt is, because you lose it a little bit in the shadows. So I'm coming up over here, and I think this is a good point to where I can fast forward the video. So I'll see you on the other side. Good luck. Okay, so I'm coming up here back to where I started, and you'll notice when I hover over that first point where I first clicked the selection, it gives me that little circle icon next to my lasso tool. That means if I click here, it's going to close the shape, and that is exactly what I want to do. Boom. So now I have a nice, fairly rough selection, but that's kind of the look we're going for. So now we have this bit left of the shirt, and if I just start clicking again, it's going to make my other selection disappear. So that's not good. I'm going to hit undo and get that back. So to add to a selection that you've already closed, you actually need to hold down Shift, and you'll notice a little plus sign shows up on my cursor. That means, okay, I'm ready to add to this selection. So I'm going to start here, and I can release my the Shift key now. It just needs you to hold it down during the first click, and then we can begin selecting this bit. So I'm just going to go around the gun here. Real rough, but being careful not to double click, because I don't want to close this shape until I'm ready right here. Boom. So now I have two selections that are right here. Okay. So now what I can do is I can turn on my flower layer, and then I'm going to click it so that it's selected. And you should still have your shirt selection here. Okay. So what I want to do is, if I hit delete now, it's going to delete the part of the shirt that I want. So I in fact want to have the reverse of this selection, or what Photoshop calls the inverse. I want to invert my selection so that it gets rid of everything but the shirt rather than what I've just done. So I'm going to hit undo, and to get the inverse of a selection, we can go to select inverse. So what that means is it's going to take the selection and select the opposite of what is there now. And you'll notice that the marching ants of the selection actually start to surround the image, and that is because that's the negative space of what we selected. So now if I hit delete, it deletes everything but the shirt. And now I can hit Command D to deselect, and there you have it. Now I went above the chin here, knowing that this layer was below the skull, so I didn't have to worry too much about that. So if I zoom out a little bit, we can really see it. And now it's really starting to come to life. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for the woman's shirt, but as you know, we don't have an image here, it's just color. So we also have her skirt and the man's pants. So we're going to use the same selection technique. I'm going to select her shirt. And here I go. Fast forward. And there we go. So I'm going to close that shape. And what I can do now to colorize it is very similar to what we did on the photo restoration project. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to select my color picker. I'm going to choose kind of this this yellowy, maybe a little fainter than that, kind of a canary yellow color. And you can choose any color you want. This is entirely up to you. I just tend to like this one. And I'm going to grab my paint bucket tool, and making sure that this layer is selected, I'm going to fill that selection. I can hit Command D to deselect. But as you can see, it's just a flat color, so we want those values to come through. And we can do that simply by using multiply, the multiply blending mode. Okay, you don't have to use the multiply blending mode. If you like another one, like color burn is kind of cool. But as I said, this is where you get to be creative. Same technique, but you're just applying some different looks to it. So I like multiply. You can choose whatever blending mode you like, and that'll be perfectly acceptable for the assignment. I'm going to use the same technique for her skirt and his pants. So I'll see you on the other side. And there we have it. Okay, so a couple more steps and then we'll be done. So if we come over here, we can see that we have two more little details here. I put an iris on his watch, and then just some kind of Andy Warhol-esque makeup on the woman. So let's go ahead and do that. And you may have guessed it, like the makeup's fairly easy. I'm going to just add a new layer, and I'm going to grab my lasso tool, and I can just freehand on some areas where she would have her eyeshadow. Grab just a ridiculous kind of 1950s blue for her eyeshadow. Fill that in. All right, now I'm going to outline her lips and choose a red. And notice I'm doing this on the same layer, like that. I can then apply the blending mode, multiply, and because they're on the same layer, they're both affected in that way. All right, last thing is we want to put that iris on his watch. So I'm going to go to File, Open, Pixels Photo. You'll find the iris there. I'm going to open it up. And instead of trying to trace this out, I'm just going to grab the elliptical marquee tool, which is basically a selection tool that draws circles. And when you click and drag, you can create a circle or ovals of any kind. I'm going to I still have my mouse held down, and when I hold down the space bar as well, I can actually move that circle around the page. So in combination of dragging it larger by releasing the space bar and then holding the space bar down again to reposition it, I can just kind of encompass that entire iris. Okay, so once you find that, you can then choose Command C, copy, or edit, copy, and then again, this is a third way of importing an image. So just stressing that point again, there's multiple ways of doing the same thing. I'm going to then go to edit paste, and it's huge, so I'm going to back up. I'm going to grab my move tool, hit Command T for transform, and I can scale this way down, zoom in, and put it over the watch. Again, scale it down to about the size you like it. Something like that. Just one of those subtle details that's kind of fun. And then hit enter. And there you have it, the Surreal Collage. So if you have successfully completed this, what you'll want to do is you want to go to File, Save, or Save As. And then what I'd like you to do is just call this Surreal Collage, and then put your name at the end. I want you to save it. Well, let's do it this way. It's easier. Save it to the desktop. Save. And then you can close it. Quit Photoshop. Yes. And then you'll need to navigate back to the server. Connect to server. Art. IDM. And in homework, the homework folder, I want you to just find your file that you saved to the desktop and just click and drag in there to hand it in, just like you've done with the previous demos. All right, well, that's it. Hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you in the next video.